French Revolution and helped lead the National Assembly to their victory over the government of France. The French Revolution was caused by the taxation of the Third Estate by Louis XVI. The revolution started with the storming of the Bastille and continued over many years. Once France was a democracy, Napoleon crowned himself emperor and turned the democracy France had into an empire that dominated the majority of Europe. During his rule, he made the Napoleonic Code in the Concordat of 1801. Napoleon was also the first consul of France, which meant he wielded all the real power of the French government. Napoleon also invaded Russia in winter, which led to his decline as an emperor. We are here today to discuss if Napoleon Bonaparte maintained the ideals of the French Revolution or
liberty, equality, and fraternity. The ideals we supposedly fought for in this revolution. The ideals that we are now ceding over to Napoleon's rule. The power of this evil dictator is completely contradictory to everything our soldiers stood for. Unsuccessful is an understatement to describe the backwards effects of this revolution. Not only were our goals unachieved, but we have circled back to the corrupt totalitarian regime of Napoleon. Despite his ability to lead a strong military, his manipulation and abuse of power will drive France into turmoil. From the start of this revolution, we have fought under the ideals that the aim of all political association is the preservation of the natural and imprescriptible rights of man. These rights are liberty, property, security, and resistance to oppression. This is the second article to the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, where we openly take claim of our natural rights under our own Constitution. And now we stand here today, crowning an emperor who wishes to rip these privileges from our grasp. This revolution has driven France into total confusion. During the Enlightenment, ideas of natural rights, checks and balances, and inherent freedoms were adopted. They fueled this revolution and gave the people eagerness to live better lives. Unfortunately, this war has been unsuccessful in maintaining these values. The French Revolution has become a war contradictory to the ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity. We are now giving up our natural rights to Napoleon, who will abuse them and exploit them, just like our previous monarchs. It is time to take back our privileges that we are owed, the privileges that we fought for over a decade in the French Revolution. Now is the time to convict Napoleon and declare our rights. Napoleon is without a doubt guilty of violating our well-deserved liberties. The ball is now in our court. We have the power to take back our privileges. It is up to us to depose the dishonorable and crooked Napoleon.
And after a gory reign of terror under Robespierre and the Jacobins, the Directory emerged, France's democratic phase. This establishment consisted of a directory of 5 members in the executive power and 2 chambers in the legislative power. Despite the Directory's revisions to the Constitution, they proved their distribution of power to be weak and inefficient due to having no roots of democratic tradition. The Directory system was infiltrated with corruption and a series of coups d'etats until Napoleon Bonaparte stepped in, overthrowing the Directory and bringing the reform that France had been fighting for. In Napoleon's reign as Emperor of France, his leadership proved to be effective and beneficial. For instance, Napoleon created a codified law system that granted rights such as freedom to work, equality before the law, and protected land property. Furthermore, as emperor and an excellent military leader, Bonaparte expanded the borders of France to spread liberty, equality, and fraternity. Additionally, Napoleon willingly signed a new constitution that limited his power, and he stated he would make peace, not war. Napoleon was an enlightened despot that created changes socially and politically that are a basis of modern-day France ideals. In the trial of Napoleon debating on whether or not he destroyed the essence of the French Revolution, I can assure you that Napoleon Bonaparte preserved the gains of the revolution.
This change that so many people fought and bled for lasted so short a time before corruption invaded the governments like a disease. This was all allowed by Napoleon, who created the Directory. This was only created as a stepping stone to help him take charge of the government as a dictator. It failed to help the economy, still allowing for the upper class to live in the lap of luxury and comfort, while the lower class could hardly afford bread. It did nothing to stabilize the country, as inept politicians found no compromise between the royalists and the radicals. The Directory eroded political liberty from within.
I had a poor economy, and I was very young when I obtained the throne, and I married for political alliances.
What was the economic state of France when you were queen?
When I was queen, the economy of France was in debt, and the corruption started by Louis XIV. So Louis XVI and I had to fix the corruption.
I fought for the rights of the people in America, and I'm here to prove that Napoleon left France worse off without a war.
Do you support the goals of the French Revolution?
I think the goals of the French Revolution are justified by the state of the nation.
Napoleon, Emperor of France.
How did you gain your power?
I was a military leader at a young age and worked my way up to be the first emperor of France.
What are some of your achievements?
I led the French to many victories, spreading the empire vastly.
And my religious commitments. I thought it was important to include that there is a right in creating laws and enforcing them as long as for the public good.
Do you support the French Revolution?
Yes, I do. I believe it's important for citizens to fight for the natural rights that were taken away.
My name is Marquis de Lafayette, and I am an American ally, a States General, and noble.
What is your opinion on the French Revolution?
I think that the French Revolution was a much-needed step for political change. The French Revolution allowed the people to fight together against unfair policies.
How does Napoleon reflect these ideas?
Napoleon reflects my ideas through the Napoleonic Code. For example, the Napoleonic Code states that all male citizens are equal and that all social class distinctions are eliminated.
How does the French Revolution compare to the goals of the American Revolution?
Both the French and Americans wanted freedom from an abusive government, and both revolutions proved the problems in absolutism. They are also both based off of unfair taxes and have similar political
Power by killing off a large percentage of the population of France.
I I had to because people kept repeating mistakes of the census.
So, why did you execute so many people in France?
Because they were continuously making the same mistakes, so I had to show them that if they were going to repeat the past and do things that were hurting the country rather than benefiting it, then
Trial of Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon was a general during the French Revolution and helped to lead the National Assembly to their victory over the government of France. The French Revolution was caused by taxation of the third estate by Louis XVI. The revolution started with the storming of the Bastille and continued over many years. Once France was a democracy, Napoleon crowned himself emperor and turned democracy into an empire that dominated the majority of Europe. During his rule, he made the Napoleonic Code and the Concordat of 1801. Napoleon was also the first consul of France, which means he wielded all the real power of the French government. Napoleon also invaded Russia in the winter, which led to his decline as an emperor. We are here today to discuss if Napoleon Bonaparte maintained the ideals of the French Revolution and or destroyed the essence of the revolution.
taking away the corruption within our government and replacing it with an empire worth remembering. Unlike the entitled kings and queens of the past, Napoleon didn't just come to power. After years of proving himself to France, he began to reign in 1799. Along with the reign also came the end of the 10-year revolution. Napoleon created rights for people. He created the Napoleonic Codes.
Three different social classes referred to as estates. The first and second estates held the clergy, and the nobles, while the third estate consisted of the peasants. The peasants were experiencing economic issues in which they were being taxed highly, were unemployed, and lacked
Became
natural.
Emperor of France.
How did he come to power?
I rapidly rose to the ranks of the military during the French Revolution. After seizing political power in France in a coup d'etat in 1799, I crowned myself emperor in 1804.
The jury has found you innocent.
Oh, we won!